Welcome back to Football on the 40. The Texas Longhorns are headed to the SEC Championship after a huge win on the road against the Aggies. That's right, listeners. In our first year in the SEC, we are headed to the big game. A&M, unfortunately, after many, many years in the conference, have yet to say the same. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on this episode enjoying and relishing in this sweet, sweet win. And we'll also look ahead to the upcoming rematch against the Georgia Bulldogs. Kevin and I are on the pod today. Sadly, our co host Andrew is taking his sick day for this episode, and we hope that we actually, he's not sick. He's just taking his PTO day. So, yeah, we're hoping he'll be back next episode following the holdout. We'll call it a holdout that he's doing. So, Kevin, you and I are going to crush it on this podcast. We're previewing the championship. How was your weekend? How are you feeling after the win against the Aggies? How was your Thanksgiving? Give me the whole deal.
Relieved after the game. And Andrew would say this, I was like really nervous on Saturday. Um, like had to go mow the yard to get my mind off of it during the day. Thanksgiving was great. We had a shake up in our plans. My mom got sick, unfortunately, and we stayed home, but scrambled and still made Thanksgiving dinner and had kind of a really laid back few days. We were expecting to spend a lot of time on the road this weekend and it didn't have to, which was nice. And we got to get together with Andrew and Cayman and all the regulars, Hamilton on Saturday and watch the game at a bar together, which was really fun. So all around, awesome weekend. I am really happy that we're going to the SEC championship. I think that's a huge accomplishment for the team. Kind of surprised. We'll get into that. But how was your Thanksgiving and weekend?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm jealous of the H-Town crew, but yeah, we spent Thanksgiving in Austin. We hosted for the first time this year, which was a ton of fun. Emily crushed it with all the planning and the prep, and of course, like we helped out, but she was definitely the mastermind behind the whole operation. You'd be proud. She had a Gantt chart for the whole thing of like multi-day prep, and so she was definitely project managing the heck out of our Thanksgiving, and it went awesome. Unfortunately, though, just throughout and maybe on the tail end of it, our whole fam did get hit with a pretty bad bug that's been going around. You listeners, you might be able to hear in my voice potentially, but Theo and Emily are still feeling the after effects of it. But I'm, hoping and praying that they will recover soon. But otherwise, we had a great weekend. Also glad that the Horns pulled it out the victory. Got to spend it watching it with um, my brother and his girlfriend. They came over, or they were over, because they were staying with us over Thanksgiving. So we had a nice crew at home watching it with me and Emily. So that was a ton of fun, and yeah, always nice to have a victory at the end of the weekend. So can't complain too much about that.
Yeah.
Um, well, the next segment we will go into is, we want to relish in the win, like we kind of talked about, and we want to bring back the SMS, the social media sadness segment. But before I do that, Kevin, you had sent a feeler text out there yesterday around potentially going to Atlanta. How are the
Yep.
how are the plans coming along for that? What are you thinking?
Nothing's progressed so far. I only want to go if like four of us from the football group text are willing, but I would say it's trending in the right direction for it to happen. I actually just checked the prices before we started here, and
Hmm.
tickets that were like mid 300s yesterday are now into the 200s. So the prices are actually dropping.
Yeah, it's a big
Since
stadium. Yeah.
it
Um,
is. And I think both of the teams are likely to make it to the college football playoff, like exactly what we were talking about in our group text,
mhm.
like save your money for the Natty might be happening. Um, there's like a lot of football to be played. I think Evan said in our group text today we might have five more games, which is just really weird to think about. But if I were to bet, which I do and do poorly often, I don't think I'll go to this one. If tickets keep going down though, it might be hard not to.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you could. Yeah, I told Kevin, we have a birthday party to attend this weekend and some other things. Otherwise, I might need to cash in some tokens to go to the Atlanta and to join you. But yeah, I feel like you could probably. Jake seemed down. You could probably wrangle a couple others, share a hotel room,
Yeah.
figure it out. But yeah, we'll see how that progresses, and hopefully next week when we come on the pod or the next time we get together, we'll have some fun stories to share. But regardless, it'll be fun to see the game, where regardless of where it is.
No
All right,
doubt. Big
let's
deal.
uh let's get into this segment. Social media sadness. There were a ton of Aggie tears for sure, pent up over 13 years, and we have a selection, a smattering, if you will, of some of the fun ones that we saw. Kevin, do you want to kick us off first with what couple that you saw?
I will. I'll read a few here. So one of the themes during the game was that the Texas A&M police are very active on Twitter. They like tweet for every single day game arrest they make, which is really entertaining. They seem to be like very strict on enforcing laws on campus. They tweeted, "University rules violation, PA 68. A man was riding a horse and another man and his dog were riding a longhorn. They agreed to leave campus," which, has nothing to do with the game outcome, but we were expecting it to be a scene in College Station, and it really was. There were all kinds of signs of game day, some good, some terrible, and leading up to the game, and especially the way the telecast like depicted the stadium when teams were running out of the field, like it was bonkers, man. And a man and his dog riding a longhorn definitely added to that. um,
It feels
we
like an
we
AI
have
generated prompt or something.
exactly like could never have guessed that, but I'm thankful that it happened. We have a couple here, obviously from TexAgs. This one is by Bayou Ag 19. A bit of a long post, but uh, be patient with me here. There's 5 points that Bayou Ag 19 made. He says, "I don't even know where to start. Number one, I just lost all faith in Mike Elko. Idiotic game management, and he just showed on national TV he's not ready and he's not elite. Number two, 110,000 in the stands, and Sark walks in cool as ice, and Texas dog walks us at home. Completely unacceptable. We don't really have a home field advantage." That's a big statement. Number three, recruiting is effed. Your two five-star offensive tackles and five-star wide receiver you hosted probably won't go play for, they will go to Texas now, and we just paid for their tickets to the game. Number four, 7-1 season to 8-4 season. Another November collapse like a script at this point. And lastly, 13 effing years, zero SEC championship game appearances. Texas comes in year one and bends you the blank over on your own field and makes it in year one. We are dead in the water as a program. So that probably took me 90 seconds to read through it, but every bit of it was well worth it.
No,
We
I
got a
love it.
lot more here.
I love
Um,
it
yeah,
because for listeners, this is on the Texas Ags like paid forum. So like you have to know it's either like a potentially a Texas fan, maybe, that is like paying money to troll on an opposing fan base. But more than likely, this is like a genuine post. It's not like on Reddit or Twitter where, anyone can come through and post. These are like true Aggie fans, and so you can really, really feel the pain behind their posts. So that was great, and thank you for going through that. Okay, I have a couple as well. So Brian Davis, a journalist, reporter, a beat reporter for the Longhorns, when Sark was asked about the environment at Kyle Field, he mentioned, "I don't think the environment causes any issues, and I'm not trying to demean anything. I was probably anticipating more. I mean, I built up in my own head to make sure we could handle whatever it was." So, as polite as Sark was, you have to know that that is such a dagger for A&M fans who pride themselves on the 12th man and all that, and host midnight yells and yell practices to really make sure their fan base and their crowd is has an effect on the game. And clearly you could see that it really, not that it was a non-factor, but like I think Coach Elko talked about too, the team didn't really give the crowd much to cheer for, so we were able to take them out of it pretty early on, and we were able to do the same against Michigan earlier this season too, which was really nice. And the big house did definitely get loud, but it was loud for a pretty short amount of time, and I have to imagine that Kyle Field was pretty similar to that.
yeah. And that, just to pause there, is a huge statement. Like the fan base takes a lot of pride in their game day environment and their stadium and their noise way more than Texas fans do.
Hmm.
They want that to be like something that they can build a nationally established football program on, you'll hear people talk about the A&M program, the university, the culture, and they kind of use that as a cornerstone of why they're a blue chip football program. They're not leading with, we win championships. We're always winning New Year's Six bowl games. It's always cornered around the fans and the
Hmm.
dedication and the noise. So, um, I mean, that was like a really difficult environment. I'm not saying it was easy. We only scored 17 points, but for them to be downtrodden about that atmosphere and Sark to say anything about that is like a literal dagger to the heart. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, I got one more, and I'll throw it back to you if you have any others. This was a fun one on a Sooners message board. So Oklahoma Sooners. This one's from Sooner Jack 80. Sooner Jack 80 says, it's really, really hard to compete with Lamborghinis for every player. Texas has billions of dollars to throw around. They have a Manning riding the bench, and he doesn't even care because he's making tens of millions. They can buy any player they want. They finally have what they always wanted. They are the mansion on the hill, and we're the trailer park. Wow, there's levels. Oklahoma commenting on Texas after we played A&M. So we're just like beat little brother, our conference rivals, the Sooners, commenting and really puffing us up. That's it's nice. It's nice to be in this position and definitely I think the Sooners are in a probably you'd probably agree with this. I think they're in a worse state than A&M is outlook wise. And so for them
mhm.
to comment on the game like this, it's definitely
Yeah.
says a lot about where their mental state is.
I mean, there's ripple effects to this. It affects recruiting, it affects other fan bases. I mean, that was a primetime late night game with millions and millions of people watching. I actually didn't even realize that that was a post on a Sooner message board until like an hour ago. Because reading it, you think it's an Aggie.
Hmm.
Um, Great stuff. And I mean, today, Monday, the Sooners just hired a 29-year-old as their offensive coordinator. Like
I
they're
saw
in
that.
dire straits. Someone with 2 years of coordination experience. I mean, he might turn out, but um, yeah, lots to be pleased about. The last one that I want to read is from Senator Ted Cruz. We talked about this last week, and we were saying like, please, 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 Ted Cruz, come to this game because he's notorious for making the home team lose. He did show up. He was in a box, and he made a huge point about what he wore. He said, "At the UT and A&M game, I'll happily root for both, but tonight I am Switzerland. I'm very glad after more than a decade this Thanksgiving tradition is back. Should be an epic SEC game." I think he lost some voters for showing up and doing that to them, but um, we got so pumped in the group text when we figured out Ted was there. We're like, thank God. Um, Hopefully he doesn't come to our game next year
Yeah, yeah,
in
I
person.
agree. And hopefully he doesn't make the trip to Atlanta too. But yeah, no, thanks. Oh, thanks for going through that with me, Kev. It's fun to relish in those social media posts, especially after a sweet, sweet victory. But okay, that'll bring us to a preview for this upcoming game against Georgia. And so, listeners, as y'all know, this is the rematch. We have previewed the Georgia team already, and so for for not for repeating ourselves, we're not going to go through each and every line item on the Georgia team again or each and every position group. What I thought we would do is we would say for the Texas team and for the Georgia team, what are three things that have changed since the last time we played each other? So this can be three good things or like a mix of good and bad things. Just kind of what are the deltas between the programs since the last time we met and what kind of impact that'll make. So Kevin took the Georgia portion and I took the Texas portion, but we'll kind of go back and forth and see. Yeah, what we think are the keys and factors that have changed. Kevin, why don't you lead us off first on the Georgia side?
Sure. Yeah. First out of three is stating the obvious. Before we played them in October, they came in the game at 5-1. Then they're 10-2 now with a loss to Ole Miss on the road since we played them, and a very close win last weekend against Georgia Tech. They went to 8 overtimes to win that game. So they've continued to have kind of slow starts, but have kept winning. Second is about their rushing attack. Then, before we played them, their leading rusher was Trevor Etienne, who at the time was averaging over 5 yards per carry. Etienne is now battling a rib injury. And now Georgia has gone to freshman Nate Frazier, who has had a huge uptick in carries since Georgia played Texas. Before we played Georgia, Nate Frazier was getting like 6 carries a game, and he's now getting like 12 to 25 or so. So he's like their leading rusher now. Georgia, kind of the story about their offense is how healthy they're going to be at the running back position. They also have Roderick Robinson, who was their leading rusher last year. Robinson went out during fall camp for a turf toe injury, I think, and got surgery. So he had not played all season until he went in briefly against Georgia Tech. So they have some running backs, battling nagging injuries, some that are coming back from surgery preseason, and it's a big unknown like who's going to be leading their rushing attack now. I will say the rushing attack doesn't seem to have dropped off that much with the name changes. Lastly, with Georgia then and now, then before we played them, their D line was sort of struggling to get into the backfield and get sacks. Coming into the Texas game, they had like 11 sacks before we played them in October, and they've basically doubled up those numbers ever since we've played
Mm,
them. They sacked Quinn 7 times in our game in October, and the team now has 30 sacks, which is quite a bit. So I think that's another big thing to watch going into the game. How healthy is their D line, and are we able to give Quinn more of a pocket this time around? So that's it for the then and now on Georgia.
nice, nice. Yeah, I like those. Yeah, that's interesting with Robinson coming back.
Hmm.
That's a name to for especially for the listeners to look out for, and the sack total too on like almost like the hockey stick increase after kind of waking up against us. It's going to be yeah, fun to see how the O line kind of steps up. We did see like I forgot. I think this was just in the pregame warm up or maybe during the course of the game. The commentary they mentioned it around how our O line really challenged themselves after the Georgia game to really step up, and you can see how that's changed after the Georgia game and how they've really made an impact. So that actually is a good segue to my first bullet point of things that are different. And this one's a good thing is the maturation of the run game for Texas. It's been such a heavy emphasis for us, and we've relied on it really heavily, especially on in late into the game when the defense is pretty wiped. For us to be able to just bully ball our way to wins has been really great throughout all games in November. In against Georgia, like Kevin, you just mentioned, we were really not successful. Trey Wisner had 15 carries for 52 yards, so averaging just 3.5 carries there. And against A&M, I think he was averaging almost seven yards a carry at one point, right? So he was definitely, and I think similar kind of statistics. Yeah, I see he finished at 5.5 per carry, and similar statistics against Kentucky and against Florida as well. So really nice to see us have a lot more maturity on the run game front. And I was listening to an Inside Texas podcast this morning around, I think it was Rod was talking about how heavy we've relied on I think I forgot what he called it. It was like a wide delay zone read or something like that, where we
Hmm.
run not between the tackles necessarily, but really get
Hmm.
our linemen upfield, let the play develop, and Trey is just a patient runner. And that style of running really matches well with what Sark wants to do with runners like great running backs like Bijan. You always recognize his patience. Similarly with like Jonathan Brooks and Trey is kind of really developing that muscle as well, letting the blocks kind of line up in really heavy tight end sets. That's been really fun to see. And on the arch package, I didn't notice it during the game, but I mean, it's not a running back, but a mobile quarterback. We had like um Goodsby, I think, was in already at that point, but we had him lined up on the right side, and then we had Juan
Really
Davis in the backfield, and yeah, so we had Sark mentioned it today. I forgot what he called it. He said he called it like an off tackle or something like that, and I didn't notice that during the game at all, and that was just really really
interesting.
creative. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first thing for me.
I would
This
I would
Oh, go
add to
ahead.
that,
Mhm.
like to the theme. I feel like back in October, we still felt like we had a two quarterback or two running back offense, excuse me, with Blue and Wisner.
Mhm.
Like you said, in the last two games especially, Trey Wisner has really established himself as like the second half go-to guy. And, I don't understand the schematics to that level, but like just watching a game that's close in the second half and we continue to run the ball and get 4 or 5, 6 yards of carry, like
Yeah.
that's a recipe to, not lose leads in the second half and play well. I mean, we've had some fumble issues since we
hmm
played Georgia, but hopefully that's over. So we'll see. What do you have next?
Yeah, for sure. And you have to imagine, I mean, that's a good call out. We're for sure gonna see a lot of heavy boxes, which for listeners like Georgia is gonna be really playing heavy to stop the run. And I can foresee them really daring us um to throw the ball. So we'll see how we respond to that game plan. We'll see. Okay, the second one that I have, and I won't take as long on these next two. The second one I have for a change, and this is a bad thing, but I think the special team regressions have been very, very evident. Year over year regressions for sure, but even throughout the course of the season, both for our place kicker for Burt and our punting game. I mean, we had a block punt this game, which maybe you wouldn't really attribute all to the punter, but his eyes were not looking at anyone coming at all. And his punting average has not been good. And Burt has been really, really inconsistent. I'm looking at his stats now from 40 and below, so up to a 40-yard field goal. He's still perfect. So that is at least one thing. He's 6 for 6. However, from 40 and over, he is only 4 of 9.
Mm,
That is just really not a place where we want to get where we want to be. Where if it's late in the game and we're either down, a couple points maybe, and we could take a field goal to take the lead, or it's tied up, or if we're down three, like having a field goal in a pressure situation in what will likely hopefully Texas travels well and we will, but this game is in Atlanta. It's in the state that Georgia plays, right? So this will be a um I think Georgia heavily favored crowd. And I think in that hostile environment, I'm pretty nervous for not just our kicking game, but even the punting game. Our net average, I think, as I haven't looked at the stats to compare, but you can just see from the eye test is not good. And you can see from just when Georgia came into town, their punters, the amount of hang time that they had compared to what we had, it was really
yeah.
bad. So I think that that's the second call out that I don't really hear that much commentary about from the beat reporters, but I think that that's going to be something that I and I know Blake and the group text will for sure call out, and we'll for sure keep an eye out for. Does that make you nervous at all, the special teams at all, Kevin?
A little bit. I mean, I'm hopeful that, like you mentioned, the fans and it being a home game, I'm hopeful that the Georgia fans are a little complacent because they've been to this game so much in the last, 5 or 6 years, and they don't show up and they're not loud because they're also saving their money for CFP. Um, and I mean, it does, but with the way the season has gone, the need to make a field goal in the fourth quarter just seems so foreign to me. Like it has been a while, fortunately, since we've played a close game and had to win like that. So, um, I mean, we can talk about this in a little bit, but I'm hopeful that the offense will kind of show up and play really well, be hyped for this one, and
Yeah.
that field position woes and questions over 40 yards and place kicking really continues not to be an issue on the telecast. That would not be good if that were a topic of interest on the telecast.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, my last one is this was not necessarily a good or bad thing, maybe neutral or bits of both. I think we have a little bit more clarity on the Quinn Arch factor, call it relationship, dynamic, where the first time we played Georgia, Arch came in as like a breather for Quinn, or like, to slow his heart rate down or to give him a break. Just this past game against A&M was the first time we saw it pulled out, but I'm sure it will, given Quinn's ankle. But we saw Arch used a lot in the red area and in short yardage situations where we wanted a little bit more dynamic a playmaking ability that
Mm,
Arch can present. And so I think that we'll definitely see that a lot more in this game versus our first matchup where it was, Arch for a whole drive, but then we didn't really ever see him again. I think we'll see him embedded throughout the course of the game when we need to make an impact. And I think in the earlier episode for Georgia preview, I think it was the Georgia preview, or just you or Andy mentioning it, how much a dual threat quarterback is more successful against the Georgia front. I think like y'all called that out, and so I think it will be really interesting to see how much how many plays and packages Arch gets on
yeah.
Saturday.
I loved that one. I think like going back and watching it and watching that A&M game next year and the year after, when I want a pick me up, that package and the way they brought it in so quickly and the way it worked so quickly is one of the things I think we'll remember about that A&M matchup for a really long time. And there was two interesting things with that package that kind of stuck with me. If you remember early in the season, our production in the red zone was like phenomenal. Like
Hmm.
the team didn't need help. We didn't need to do anything special. We were just scoring touchdowns all the time in the red zone. And to think, I mean, obviously things changed, but late in the season, they had clearly planned for a shakeup. And maybe it was like the way that they were going to break habit and bring something new, and they were just going to do that. But it's interesting that an offense has gone from like so dominant in the red zone to like automatic, like this is our situation. We're going to change everything up, even the quarterback, and run it quick. That's the first thing that I think about. So, like, is Sark thinking that we need a little bit of help to score at this point? Maybe. The other thing that I loved about it was such a like sudden change of personnel. We did it a few times, and I think twice, Elko took a timeout immediately.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, those are important downs when we're doing that, but to double down on that and change the personnel so shockingly, like gives you a huge coaching advantage to just pull timeouts from somebody like Elko during a period of the game where they normally wouldn't. Like you're going to save those things if you need to um, be smart with the clock. So I thought it was a good coaching move too in that regard to like continue to bring it back so that you could pull timeouts from A&M. Um, we'll see how much we see it against Georgia if it was just a wrinkle for the A&M game, but like yeah, that was one of the coolest things about the A&M game, especially with him scoring immediately from like 15 yards out and the way that he responded. Like you can just tell the team like really loves the guy and likes his moxie in a different way than they do Quinn. I'm not saying they
Yeah,
don't
for
like
sure.
Quinn, but like the team just responds so well to him. And you can tell like he's just so in the moment, so excited to have done that. And I don't know, it's just cool to see the team responding to that. So I hope to see a little more of that with Arch this game, but also like I don't think Arch is going to put us over the edge against Georgia. I think it's going to be like, does Quinn show up and show out? Who's the guy? Is it Carson
Hmm.
Beck or is it Quinn? Like Quinn just has to
Yeah.
play well. If we're in a situation where we need Arch to like lead drives, like we're not going to win this game.
I agree to that. So Kev, like, what do you think, from the Georgia side, from Texas side, like, what does it come down to? Like, what are you thinking, this Saturday is going to look like?
I- Kind of to the point I was just making, like Quinn has to play well. There's a lot on his shoulders, obviously. In order for him to do that, the offensive line has to protect him. He cannot be sacked again 7 times like he was the first time we played Georgia. So, you know, God forbid if Kelvin Banks isn't healthy, we need his replacement to play well. Like there cannot be hands on Quinn, which is such a difficult task against Georgia because of the way their defensive line is. And the more you watch them, the more you realize they do a lot of like surprise blitzes from like the second level. There's just so much you have to pick up as an offensive lineman. It's not just like focus on the guy in front of you. There's like a lot of scheme that you have to be aware of. But protect Quinn is the first thing. The second about, you mentioning our maturation of the run game, we have to run the ball. Not even we have to run the ball well, not just better than we did the first time we played Georgia. Last time they held us to 29 yards rushing and 1.1 yards per carry, which I haven't double checked. I don't think I need to. That's our worst rushing performance of the season for sure. And then the last thing is like we can't turn the ball over. We had, I think, 4 turnovers against Georgia. 3 of them were uh, fumbles, and obviously that was taking opportunities away from us to score, and it was also giving Georgia this like crazy good field position. Like I just looked at it before we started. Georgia's scoring drive average, like average yards gained to score against us was 34 yards.
Hmm.
Like they just kept getting the ball on like our 30-yard line and having easy scoring opportunities. So those are the 3 things. Run the ball well, protect Quinn, no turnovers.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I agree. I think the defense played really well last time. Yeah, those short fields were tough to watch. Watch definitely, but yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see if the Horns show up.
Hopefully they do.
All right, so that'll take us into betting corner. Um, some of us fared well this past week. Actually, just me. I fared very well this past week, and it was because of my how bad could it get strategy where I parlayed my two fandoms together and put a mega 10 unit parlay on the line for them both to win, and it worked out very closely. Kevin and Andy did not have like terrible losses, not like weeks I've had. They both were a little over 2 units down for the week. So that brings Andy's total to about 2.5 units up. Kevin is down to minus 15 now. So he's kind of joining me in double digit territory a little bit. And I'm still almost 30 units down. So still a lot of football left to be played, like Kev mentioned. Lots of games left, and not any more, not any, you know, better opportunity than this week ahead, where Georgia and Texas will play in the SEC game. And so we'll start with that game. Texas open as 2.5 point favorites. I think it's gone down on some sites, or maybe it's crawled back up. Um, but 2.5 points again in a technically neutral site. Technically, we're the home team, but it's actually in Georgia, and we're also wearing our away team colors that we prefer to do. So it's kind of hard to pick a trend that you really like, but Vegas thinks that we're 2.5 points better than the Bulldogs, and so we'll see how that turns out. The over under is around 50, 49.5. So I don't know, not really high or low. I think they just kind of settled around right around there. Georgia is a little over well, they're plus 115 on the money line if you like them to win out straight up. So yeah, we'll start with this game first. Obviously, a lot of other championship games throughout college football as well, but we'll start with the Georgia game. Kevin, what do you like? And we'll also read out Andy's bets too because he sent his in as well. So
Yeah.
Kevin, why don't you take us away?
I'm I'm just gonna go for it. I need a boost. I try so hard in this segment, in our betting segment, like not to be a homer for Texas. Um, but my hopes are up. I'm outing myself. Like we just got through November and, couple trap games, a really difficult one on the road, and like sure the offense faltered at times, but the team didn't as a whole get let down, right? So I'm feeling great about our team, like how healthy our team is. And I'm remembering like a couple times ago when we played in the Big 12 championship, I forget what year it was, maybe 2021 or 2019 or something like that, or 2018. We had beat OU in the regular season and had a matchup again with them in Jerry World for the Big 12 championship. And we're feeling great in that one, but just learned like it's really difficult to beat a team twice in one season. So um, I'm grateful that that's kind of in our favor this time. And I think it's going to be really difficult for Georgia to beat us twice. So all that to say, I'm putting all 10 of my units on Texas to cover. Um, yeah, just putting it all on the line.
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
not
I like
hedging
it.
my heart or hedging my emotions. Like, it's going to be a big letdown for me if we don't win the game kind of big because I'm pretty confident.
I like it. I like it. Okay. I'm gonna do man, that got me fired up, but I can't change my bets. I'm just taking the total. I'm taking over 49 and a half. I think don't want necessarily be high scoring, but I think we're gonna, really try to put the points up. And Georgia will try to do similar. So I'm hoping for a lot of points, and I'm picking what I'm gonna root for. So I'll take the over 49 and a half, and I'll just put 4 units on it. Nothing too crazy after a nice week.
All right.
Kev, do you have
I'll,
Andy's bet for this game?
I do. I will read out Andrew's. This makes me worried because Andrew famously listens to his gut and bets the opposite. So Andrew is also betting on a Texas cover. He's putting 2 units on that, which tells us listeners that Andrew thinks Georgia is going to cover. Um, but yeah, me and Andrew are benefiting financially if the Horns win, which is how it should be.
Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. And Kev, I don't think you have any other bets throughout the rest of the games, and neither do I, but Andy, I think, has a few, right?
Yeah, he does. Andrew's also an SMU grad. He pretends to be a huge fan of both. I kind of don't buy it, but he's also got 2 units on SMU to cover in their game. I don't know do you know the line in the ACC championship game?
I don't. Let me look it up
We
for
can look
you
that
real
up.
quick.
His other bet is an interesting parlay. He's calling it New Kids on the Block, which is saying that new teams and power conferences are going to win the conference championship. So he's got 1 unit on Texas money line with Oregon money line with SMU money line and with Arizona State money line. Um, that would probably pay out quite a bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, SMU is 2.5 point favorites against Clemson. So
Yeah. So
nice. Okay. Well, he's got a lot to cheer for this weekend, and we've kind of simplified ours a little bit, but we'll still be fun to see how those turn out. Okay. Um, that brings us into score predictions. Kevin, what do you think?
man, I didn't prepare this one, but I think we win 35 to 20. I
Okay.
think we win by 15 points.
Oh wow. Nice.
And,
Okay, I'm going 28-24. I think it'll be a close one, but I think we
Ooh.
still pull away.
And Andrew's prediction is 27-17 Texas. So he's picking a 10-point win.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
one one more thing I want to say on the predictions is, this doesn't really matter now, right? But at the beginning of the season, Andrew and I put in a lot of research, read all the Longhorn hype, and Andrew picked us to go, I think, 10-2. I picked us to go 9-3 in the season, I think. Bowen, you picked every game correct this regular season. So kudos to you. You had us at 11-1 with a loss
Mm-hmm.
against Georgia. So, nice job. That's worth something. You didn't put any money on it, but you picked every game right after not reading any of the hype in the fall.
Nice. Yep. Yep. Worked out. We did not pick the postseason yet, though, so we'll see. We'll see how those turn out. But yeah, I also mentioned on the Georgia preview that, like you said, Kevin, it's hard to beat a team twice. But this year there's this added wrinkle of like, if we win now, there's a chance we meet them again, right? I mean, depending on how the bracket shakes out, maybe not, because it's just single elimination, but we could have a rematch. And that's like, okay, if we win now, do we lose again later? Like, how does that work? Or if they win the first two, do we get the last one, or is it like a complete shutout? That would be just a mind F. So,
We're just
yeah.
focusing on what's in front of us.
Yep,
Andrew's
just
gonna hate
win.
that.
Just win, baby. Just win. For
Yeah.
sure. Okay, we have a couple mailbags before we wrap up here, and I will read them out. They're not questions. They're mostly just comments. This first one is from certified underscore OU hater. Let's kick him out of Atlanta. I love it. I love it. Yep, we will definitely be doing our best to do that. Okay, this next one is from Andrew Hollenbeck, 1234. He says, I'm so excited for this game. We need to beat them so dang bad. So lots of excitement from the Longhorn faithful for our maiden season in the SEC and our maiden appearance in the
Yeah.
SEC championship game.
And I mean, we should be excited because those of us who've been paying attention for a while, have gotten used to bad football and have trained ourselves not to set our hopes up. And in the last, what is it, less than 2 years, our team's gone on the road and beaten Alabama, Michigan, and A&M in very difficult road environments. And we've had a CFP berth and won a conference championship. So, like, from 5 years ago to a year and a half ago, the question was always like, is Texas back? And I didn't want to answer that. It was a question that annoyed me. But if you're not enjoying this and like greatly looking forward to the game, you are doing yourself a disservice. You should absolutely get hyped and, be proud of the fact that we've made it to the conference championship in the SEC in our first year. How bad would that have been if we would have come in year one and all the talk was right? Oh, the Longhorns are going to learn. It's hard in this conference, hard to win on
Mm-hmm.
the road,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done it. So kudos to Sark and be excited.
Fully agreed. Couldn't have said it better myself. I will just end with optimistic Kev is here, folks. He is here. He is loud. He is proud, folks. And I am so pumped. You got me fired up for sure. We have a lot more football to be played, a lot of postseason to look forward to. So, um, yeah, that was great, Kev. Thanks for hyping me up. I'm gonna ride that energy all the way till Saturday at 3 p.m. Central. So that'll do it for us this week, listeners. Thank you again for listening. If you haven't already, remember to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube or our Spotify pages or wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you on the next Football on the 40.
Hook 'em.